Hello, it's June the 3rd, afternoon, and I'm going to carry out an annual ritual, which I do for myself every year and which I'm sure a lot of other walkers do, called inspecting Port Meadow. I want to find out whether it is yet possible to go round the western edge of Port Meadow next to the river, or whether it's still too wet. If I seemed a little bit obsessed with streams yesterday, that's because they form a big part of Oxford's life, and you always seem to be getting blocked off from one place or another by water. Where I'm standing, I'm very close to William Lucy Way, which I used as a starting point in at least 2 other videos. I'm on Walton Street at the junction with Kingston Road there and Walton Wells Street going down to Port Meadow. You can see the top row, the top few shops on Walton Street. Pepper's Burgers are nice. And the VG Food Stores is a useful independent shop with a surprisingly wide range of things like tahini, tinned Brussels sprouts, believe it or not, various types of tinned beans, different sorts of oat cakes. And this shop I may have mentioned before, it used to sell stuff for parties, costumes and so on, vampire blood, plastic cloaks, swords, knights' helmets, and then a large hole opened up outside it, or so I'm told, sometime round the beginning of the lockdown in 2020, so the combination of lockdown and the hole didn't do its business any good, and the shop has now closed. There are signs outside it announcing imminent rebuilding by a company called Savvy. But much like the embankment bit of Tumbling Bay that I showed you yesterday, nothing is being done, and the shop is just derelict. Right, I'm crossing Walton Street and I'm going to head down to Port Meadow. So I'm at the top of Walton Wells Street and I'm heading down to Port Meadow.
Verbally stating to each other in explicit terms that we are like saying
This is where Luce's Ironworks used to be, now replaced by flats. Longworth Road on the right heading back to Walton Street, and Southmore Road straight ahead. Here I am at William Lucy Way. With the canal down there and a stub passageway cul-de-sac down there. At the bottom you can cross onto the canal.
Then there are some wrapper up to 5.
Sounds as though the railway is doing something over there. A train bringing lucky sightseers from Birmingham, perhaps. Over there is the railway, and over there is the centre of Port Meadow, still flooded, with Wolvercote beyond it on the horizon. There's a beautiful smell in the air from all the leaves. Right, so here I am at the entrance to Port Meadow. And that's Wolvercote beyond again. Anyone want to go on a run? There are a lot of this type of feature in Oxford. I don't know in detail about the construction method used. There's probably more to it than just saying, oh, it's compacted earth and stones. But I suspect the word causeway covers them all. A sort of raised track that sticks above the water and gives access to a place. Willow Lane, that I walked along yesterday, is one. There's another one called the North Hinksey Causeway between Oseney Mead and North Hinksey, the one that comes out in the garden of the Fishes pub. That was an important medieval route. And this nowadays is obviously a third. I don't actually know how far back it goes. I should look it up. So, this path, this causeway possibly, is fine. The question is, what happens when I get off it? And I'm going to keep looking down at the ground, which I was just saying, I don't think the gimbal's tracking algorithm is, even if it were working properly, is designed for looking at the ground in detail. The gimbal isn't working properly though, it keeps suddenly cutting out and swinging the phone around, which is why I had to cut just then. Well, the ground is still dry here. The demarcation between different types of plant. Notice the short grass and yellow flowers versus the nettles and longer grasses ought to tell me something, but I don't know what. Tell me something about types of soil or average water level, perhaps. It's not as warm as yesterday. The air feels a bit like a moderately warm but slightly clammy blanket. It's very humid. Still, at least I'm not shivering. There isn't a north wind like there has been. Much shorter grass here. The boatyard and the streams and the bridges and features that I crossed yesterday make me think about the people that used to live and work on them. To a lot of tourists, Oxford is just presented as the university, or the university plus places to film Harry Potter. But of course there were many more people than just dons, that is university teachers and students, including all the guys over the centuries who had to get around in an extremely soggy, what was basically a marshscape rather than a landscape. Much like this is, in fact, in the middle. I once came across a book called Memories of a Fenland Tiger. Memories of a Fenland Tiger, from somebody who'd written it in maybe his 50s or 60s, and who seemed to have spent most of his life on punts or a similar kind of boat. And it must have been similar in Oxford. This is a track round the edge of the marina, Bossoms Boatyard Marina. Oh, that's pleasantly dry, actually. Doesn't look too bad. This is common land and it's being used. I want to avoid getting too close to those. Notice the camera will be shaking a lot. Notice how uneven the ground is. Right, have a look at it. Look at that. And the amount of water by the boardwalk. I know this land, and It's quite late in the year for it still to be so soggy. Okay, so that's a little bit drier. This, if I can't pass from here to slightly north of here, that doesn't mean I can't get to the top of Port Meadow at all, because I can go round the eastern edge where Burgess Field Nature Reserve is. I came back that way in a previous video, but it does mean that I can't conveniently go along the bank, this bank of the Thames, and there may be soggy spots further north. Oh, that's still soggy. We've only had one really dry day, and that was yesterday. This is what's technically known as a mudscape. Nice raised ground at last. There are the university's horrendous Castle Mill flats again. 21st century architectural brutalism. And I'm going to make my way back to the entrance of Port Meadow and then say goodbye. Another way to detect the passability of the ground indirectly is to sample the dog walkers. You get dog walkers from Wolvercote and dog walkers from this part of Oxford, Jericho. When the ground is not too damp, they can each pass to the other's zone, and so you get a nice mixed population of equal Wolvercote and Jericho blood. When the ground is soggy, they can't, so you only get Oxford dog walkers here and Wolvercote dog walkers in Wolvercote. It's nice and warm now. I can feel the sun on my back. It's lovely. I've talked about the Castle Mill Flats. The flats are named after a stream, the Castle Mill stream, which runs for quite a large distance round here and in central Oxford. It tracks the canal for part of its way over there, and then follows this line of trees and joins or rejoins the Thames. Near the end of the path, the causeway. I'll do a video in which I follow the entire stream. It's basically a backwater of the Thames. It leaves it here, goes for a fair distance down the canal and into the city, and then rejoins the Thames not all that far from Folly Bridge. Well, I'm now at the entrance to Port Meadow, and I think I can safely say that the too wet at the moment for me to be able to walk all along it. Okay, that's the end of the video. See you next time.